Hello, welcome. Let me look at the comments. How are you all? Hope you are doing well. Hope you had a good Easter weekend. Um, I'm so excited about tonight. I hope you are too. I'm excited about our panelists. I'm excited to bring them up. And before we get started, I'm going to do what we always do. We're going to pray. We're going to invite God into this session so that it can be fruitful. Um, yeah, and I'm also excited too because this topic is really dear to my heart because mental health is something that we don't like to talk about, but it's something we need to be talking about. And so for many of us, it's something that we didn't hear a lot about until we got older, until we got grown. And it's something, for us that are saved and living this Christian life, it's something that we're starting to talk about. And so we have options now to talk to Christian therapists, and we have options to get help and all this good stuff. So we have a Christian therapist joining us tonight. We also have two entrepreneurs that are joining us. And so we're going to have a really good discussion that I'm excited about. And so, yeah, we have, like I said, we have options. We don't have to, we dealing with things. We don't have to stay that way. We don't have to stay in that place. And so that's what I'm excited to jump into. And so first we're going to get started with prayer, and then I'm going to bring my panelists up. All right. So, God, I thank you tonight. I thank you for this community. I thank you for everything, God, that you are doing in our lives. I thank you, God, that you are just a good father. I thank you for the women that are here. I thank you for the women and their households that are represented on tonight. I ask that you would just give us what to say, God. I ask that you would give us hope to impart into these women. I ask that you would give us what to say, that they would leave here with something that they want to do differently, that they would leave here with a changed mind. Maybe that's something that we say would linger with them, and that they'll do something different. They'll make a different decision just based on something that they've heard on tonight. And so we just invite you into this session, and we thank you, and we pray that it is well. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. And so on tonight, let me bring up my panelist. As you're coming in, feel free to drop some love in the comments to our panelists. Daisy.
Hi.
Uh-oh. I think I hit the wrong one. Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, girl. Hey.
How are y'all?
Doing well.
Good. It's so nice to see you all and nice to meet you all as well.
Yes.
I think I connected with you all through Z, I believe. So shout
But
out to Z.
I,
Shout out to
I, I
Z.
will see. I'll send you some people now.
Shout out to Z. And literally, my parents talk about this all the time about having a good name. Because people think, no, people be sleeping on that. Literally, when I said your name, people's like, okay, I'll do it. Like, okay,
Oh,
cool. I kid you not. Like, so I appreciate y'all for just showing up and and coming and talking to us tonight. And so the topic is, I named it Jesus in Therapy because a lot of times people want to act like, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm so excited. I'm sorry. Let me let y'all introduce yourself really quick to our community. I'm sorry. So we'll get started with April.
Hey guys, my name is April Hudson. I am a mom, proud mom of three, 4, 5, and 6-year-old, and entrepreneur. Been in entrepreneur game since the cups of COVID, about 2019, 2020. And I'm a savage faith woman of God who just loves serving and love doing all things to help create a culture of women, of people who to believe God, watch the power that they have on their tongue, just being a person who just really speaks anything that's honorable, whatever is truth, whatever is praiseworthy. So that's just who I am all around. And so I give God all the credit for where I am right now. And I'm just thankful to be here and grateful to have a good name as well. Because when you mentioned Z, I was like, what? She knows me. So, so yes, I'm just grateful to be a part and be in the midst.
Thank you. Rosalind.
All right. Hey, ladies. My name is Rosalind. I am a licensed clinical social worker, aka a therapist. I am a mom and wife. I have a 2-year-old and a 3-month-old. So I just had a baby in January. So I am
Go girl.
in the trenches, sis. Okay. I am a full-time entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur for almost 2 years now. I also am a podcaster. My podcast is called Therapy as a Christian, where I talk about mental health and faith and share my experience as well as others, and coming from expertise lens of what does it look like to be a Christian in counseling. I am a byproduct of therapy. I was in therapy for 4.5 years before recently starting back again. And I feel like God and mental health go well together hand in hand. And I feel like mental health is very close to the Father's heart. So that's why I love to talk about this. I could talk about this all day, not only just being in the field professionally, but also more personally.
Awesome.
And Z, welcome back. Welcome back.
Hey y'all, my name is Z and I am a retired makeup artist, but I now provide Black women with makeup education online. I have been an entrepreneur for a little over a decade, and I'm really excited to be here. I'm all for. Do y'all hear echo by chance?
Just a little bit.
A little bit. Okay. I'll take it out if I need to. But I'm really excited to be here because I love all things mental health and Jesus. I love Jesus and I like taking over for the 992,000. So I got a good, good balance there. So I'm excited.
So funny. All right, y'all been so excited because people have been texting like, I'm looking forward to what I'm looking, because this is a different topic for my community, and so this is a different topic, but just to bring you all up to speed of what my community is, and if for anybody that's new as well. So this community is all about women of faith and just women that are on a journey to learning who you are, discovering who you are, your purpose, but also leaning into what God has called you to do and what He's called you to be. And so this year we've been talking about executing. And so I'm like, what we do is we bring different speakers and have different topics monthly. And this topic was dear to me also because a lot of people, we suffer in silence, and you don't have to do that when you're in community. We have people who can pray with you and can help you to do better. And so that's why I was like, well, this is very fitting because you don't have to deal with that by yourself. We have resources, we have help. And to open this up, I started with this. I said, many of us grew up in church. And so, knowing God, and they would always tell us, just pray about it. And so when things get real and when pain starts to take root over time, before you realize it, you become someone that you barely even recognize. And so this can happen with romantic relationships. Sometimes things don't work out. You end up hurt. And, that's a lot of our stories. I'm leaving me out here by myself. And whether it's romantic relationships, and then something, that's also been more recent, we've also heard people experience church hurt. So there are all kinds of different hurt. But then another thing I want to also introduce tonight, we're going to talk about a couple different topics. It's just a kind of introduction. Something else is very familiar, another type of hurt with entrepreneurs, God put on my heart today, is disappointment. Because in this community, we also talk about business a lot, entrepreneurship. And so he also talked to me about, a lot of entrepreneurs are dealing with disappointment, which is another form of hurt. And so we're gonna get into it tonight. So just to start us off, what would you say? Start with Rosin. What would you say to the person who you're sitting there with there's some things that you're holding on to, but you don't know where to start. You don't know what to do.
Yeah. So the first way I would say is the first step of healing is awareness. I primarily only serve Black women in my private practice. Most of them are either in their early 20s up till their late 30s. 97, I'll just say 97% of the women that come to me or that I serve, 97% of them struggle with feeling awareness. So that is just basic feeling identification, knowing how to advocate for themselves, knowing what they're actually experiencing. Why are they struggling with depression? Why are they struggling with anxiety? It's way more common than we think. A lot of it has to do with stemming from our childhood. So most of it is childhood trauma, but a lot of it can just be basic trauma from attachment to our parents. So a lot of Black women struggle with relationships with their moms. If they don't struggle with relationships with their moms, they either have some form of something that might have happened to them when they were younger that they remember very much so. And a lot of them really don't know how to advocate for themselves. They use a lot of times achievement and accomplishment as a means to cover up what is the thing that they are actually struggling with. And most of us, myself included, who are very achievement natured, especially if you have a business, that usually is where that can come from. You're very ambitious. You want to start something, make it from scratch, pour into people, all of that. Don't know the challenges that come along with doing stuff, especially when it comes to creating something from scratch in general. If I'm talking for more of a business lens, just speaking from a space of knowing what you are experiencing might be something you want to work on. My first advice would be just basic awareness. And then reaching out to someone, asking for help. That is a big issue that I see, and a big just I wouldn't even say issue. I would say something we're just not taught as women to ask for help, and ask for help because we don't even know how to advocate for our own needs, because we don't really know what we need. And so I would say reaching out to a therapist, reaching out to someone, community that you can talk to. If you don't feel comfortable or feel vulnerable enough to do that, I would say first reach out to somebody and find a safe space emotionally, safe space where you can communicate what you need or what you're going through. Because 9 times out of 10 or 100 beyond 100% of the time, somebody else is experiencing the same thing you're experiencing or has experienced the same thing you're experiencing. And everything that is under the rug will manifest in some way, unfortunately.
Okay. All right. And for April and Z, what would you say help you all to communicate? Like you like whatever area it was, you don't have to say, but maybe there was a moment where you like, I'm hurting. Like I need help. Like what helped you to be able to get that boldness to say, you know what, I'm going to do something about this. Because like I said, we've been talking about executing. So I think that's really hard for some people. Like Roslyn just said, it's hard to even identify, but then when you do identify it, how do you execute? Like how did you make yourself like, I need to do this?
Yeah, I'll go. So for me, I think that like Rosalind first mentioned is awareness. I knew that I had done as much as I could do by reading books and watching videos and joining as many Bible studies as I could. And I was like, let me try this therapy thing. And it was a very I would say interesting decision to make, just because you grow up in a church or an environment where, you know, we don't talk about things outside of the home. You know, family business is family business. And so when you have that awareness, you start to build security about who you are. You can't talk about me if I'm already talking about me. So when I build that security, I have enough confidence to push myself to do something that may be outside of the norm. And then I learned to keep it to myself. I didn't have to make an announcement about, you know, and I created that safe space for me first. You know, I don't have to make an announcement that I want to try therapy or I want to seek, you know, outside help. You know, I don't have to allow someone to or invite someone in to shame me about my decision to do that. You know your people that surround you.
That's true.
You know their type of crazy or their type of response to you, and you know what sets you off or what's gonna make you feel uncomfortable. And I created a safe space for myself that helped me to make that decision a lot easier. But choosing therapy was one of the best things that I could do because it allowed me to learn of, hey, this is how I feel. Because at first you can be so mad and so angry, but you don't know the root of that thing. Which therapy gives you the tools to find the root, and it all ties back spiritually because we wrestle not against flesh and blood, you know. So I think that just having it, building that confidence in myself by creating my own safe space and I didn't know I was creating boundaries, but I did. But creating my own safe space, it just helped me to make that decision a lot easier.
Yeah, I agree with what Z said as well. I guess being able to understand how God sees me helped me to be able to deal with disappointments a lot better. Understanding how he feels about me, and then also letting go of the fact that, or the notion is that I had held, I guess, God to a standard or a way of thinking because of the disappointments that I felt like my parents had let me down in. Me changing my view of him and feeling like I don't have to perform in order to get in, to be in a relationship with him, helped me to break down those walls where I can now have a voice and not be scared. Or even if my voice is trembling, I can create, like she said, create a space where I can be vocal about how I feel. And then on top of that, I used to always feel like for some reason my voice is never heard. So by me spending more time by myself, especially during COVID, is where everything kind of shifted for me. Me being able to understand that I know there is an enemy, but I don't like to give the enemy a lot of credit. However, I feel like there are two systems that I'm operating in. It's either the light side of me or the dark side of me. And I feel like I was in the dark side win more because for some reason, that dark side knew that once this mouthpiece, this muzzle that I kept on myself, once I released that, then things will start to shift and start to change. So when I'm in by myself and I started to ask those questions like, why does that trigger you? Why do you feel this way when somebody do X, Y, and Z? Why, when I start asking myself those questions and then being able to find a therapist where, okay, these are my thoughts, and me processing in them, and then she's sending me home with homework, and then I'm doing the work as far as applying what she's saying and applying it with word and finding a way to merge the two is what kind of made the transition for me to be able to be comfortable enough to say, this hurts me. And not so much if, being okay if they cannot help me, if they cannot ail me, or they cannot heal me in whatever facet I'm looking for. At least I gave myself enough confidence to really kind of get myself together and be bold enough to be able to speak out loud for myself. And I think that's what's more freeing for, and as far as helping me overcome disappointments in any facet of my life.
That's good. I think when I started my journey, I think something that really blew my mind is how you can trace so much. Y'all are just so good at what y'all do, Rising, because how you can just trace so much of it back to childhood, and it's spiritual, like Z said, because when you really think about it, that's where he gets a lot of us. He wants, if he can stop you way back then and get that stuff, like get a root in you way back then, like he onto something sometimes. And so I'm really thankful that like you're able to, like they help us to identify, like you said, and we can dig those roots up, because a lot of it starts in your childhood. That's when he really was trying his best to get us, steal, kill, and destroy. That was really good and helpful. And so let's talk about boundaries. I heard a lot of y'all. I heard both of you mention some things about boundaries. What were some tools and tips that you use to have boundaries, to implement boundaries in your life?
Well, I'll go with this one. So one day I'm going to make it in like a visual sense for clients, but like you had kind of said earlier, Jasmine, a lot traces back to childhood. And so I believe wholeheartedly, this is a true belief of mine, that everything that we were exemplified as kids from our parents translates a lot into our spiritual relationship with God. For example, so my relationship with my father growing up was not very emotionally connected. He was not involved emotionally at all. Him and my mom were married, but they also had a very complex relationship. And so I always kind of referred to my dad as a roommate. He lived in the house, but I didn't really interact with him that much. My mom, however, we had a very enmeshed relationship. And it was so enmeshed that it became really unhealthy when I got older and had my first son. And I realized it was so enmeshed because I could not pull away from my mom. I was the kid in my late 20s calling my mama to call the people to say, what do I say to these people on the phone, girl? Like, wait. You know that. So it was really hard for me to kind of learn how to detach from that because it really crippled me in making choices and being able to have a lot of confidence in my adulthood. And so with that being said, I always go through this cycle with clients around when you first realize that you have maybe have had an unhealthy relationship with your parents, that there's a cycle of anger and guilt. Then there's a cycle of sadness. And then there is a cycle of acceptance. And then you kind of go back around that cycle. Each time you realize something that was really unhealthy. The hard part is getting out of the anger piece because the anger piece really, really can keep you crippled in creating boundaries with your family because you often just want to cut them off, to be honest. However, there's a way to create healthy boundaries in a way that doesn't require you to be estranged. However, that process does take time. And boundaries doesn't always have to necessarily be with your parents. It can be in romantic relationships. It can be in friendships. The biggest core piece in tips in creating boundaries is knowing your values. And those can shift often. So that can shift from when you have kids. When you have kids, your values of family time may look different from when it was just you as a single person versus you and your husband. And so the way people speak to us, the way people interact with us all relates to our boundaries. So for example, a very big boundary of mine is family. I don't really like to work and often don't really like to interact and talk on the phone unless it's my really close sisters or when my sons are home. I really don't even talk to friends a lot on the weekends when both my sons and my husband are home because I value so much my time with them that I don't want my time to be impacted by that. That also includes me not working. And as an entrepreneur, we work. We have to work. We have to basically eat what we eat when we hunt. And so, and if you don't hunt, you're not going to eat. But because my values are so ingrained in me, there's a lot of times I will put that first before things that can take my time up. And so that's a boundary of mine to put my family first because I witnessed a lot of that not happening when I was younger. And it truly, truly impacted my childhood. So boundaries can be with people. Boundaries can be with the way you use your time. Boundaries can be when you don't answer the phone. Boundaries can be in so many other ways. But the core thing is finding your values. And most of us don't really know our values until we really explore what we hold deep and dear to us. And sometimes what we hold deep and dear may not be healthy. And so that's where you have to explore and kind of figure out what those value pieces are so that you can create boundaries. And it gets easier over time. It's very uncomfortable. There's a lot of guilt in the process. There's a lot of uncomfortability because you've never done it before. And just because you're kind of doing something new doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It just is really uncomfortable in the beginning. And then eventually you feel better because you're not burnt out. Yeah. And so that's what usually happens when you put boundaries in place. You don't feel it in the beginning until later on.
I like that. It really does feel wrong at first because it's so new.
It feels like, oh, you are the worst person. And people will project their projections on you all day long about what that you should not do or why that is not right or that you're wrong. Most of the time it's a projection. And just because you're projecting doesn't mean I have to receive that. That's not my load to carry. That's yours. That's your stuff that you need to deal with. That isn't mine. This is a boundary.
I release you. Yes, I'm in a season of discovering my boundaries as well. Like you said, it's very uncomfortable when you notice that it needs to happen. It's necessary, and so oftentimes, especially with me being a single mom, entrepreneur, and I didn't have that order, that balance that I wanted to. Are we still on? Is she gone?
I don't know where she went, but I can see y'all.
Okay.
Okay.
I didn't want to finish without her. But I guess I guess for the sake of keeping going, because it's still the live's still going. But I always struggle with trying to find balance. That's that B word that we always, put out there. I need to find balance and try to, and then I just come to the conclusion in my life, there's no such thing as balance. It's more so, are you good, Jazz?
Yes. I hate to be churchy, but I gotta say this. The devil must be big mad because that has never happened. My whole computer just shut off. Just in the middle of it. Like,
oh my God.
my community know I'm extra churchy, but like the whole computer just went off. Y'all got up looking around like, no, who came here? Who done came here and turned my computer off? All right, y'all. I'm sorry. So unprofessional. But anyway, I was enjoying y'all, and it just went off.
It's okay.
But I agree. It is uncomfortable to start off by trying to establish some boundaries. But like I was telling everyone else, I was saying that I've kind of gotten in the way of the word balance, because that B word, it seemed like it'll run us crazy trying to figure it out with being, whatever position that you hold as an entrepreneur, a mom, a wife, friend, sister, whatever title that we possess as women, and we always trying to figure out what's the balance. And so I've gotten rid of the word balance and just started to prioritize what's needed in that chapter of my life, in that season of my life, or weekday, or wherever the case may be. Because when I think of things, I guess because as a designer, I'm always visually seeing things, and that's my brain just always in grids, always seeing stuff. And so when I think of a balance, it's like I'm saying at one point in time that my kids weigh more than my work, or my work weighs more than my kids, and then whatever is pat on top of it, it's like I'm telling them that they don't mean more, or they're not equivalent to this. And I didn't like how that looked in my head. And so that's why I started saying, let me just prioritize what's needed in that moment. Maybe in this moment, or maybe in this season, I need to give all my undivided attention to my children, or in this season, I need to give my undivided time to myself or my business. This season of my business may require me to pull some all-nighters and to really invest and to really, really push content, or whatever case may be. So I just started prioritizing. Then that's when it seems like order was created back in my house, where I can really see where myself was going, where I see God moving in certain areas, because I was able to tap into whatever was needed of me in that moment, opposed to me trying to figure out which one weighed more and me feeling guilty in a sense. But especially that last part that you said, Rosin, as far as just releasing people, because people will project whatever they're feeling onto you when you move or operating from a different system or a different wavelength than they're accustomed to. And so I've gotten comfortable in saying, like, I hate when people say I'm cutting you off. It is what it is. I just I'm God asked you to release me, release them from whatever it is. This is a God that's attached to me, where it makes me I'm become their God, or I'm making them they're my God. And so it's like I'm just in this space where I'm just releasing people as they are. I can't hold on to anything. I can't make sense of what's happening in this season of my life. I can't make sense of what happened in your life. But what I'm not willing to do is to compromise what makes me feel whole, and what makes me feel sane, and what makes me be able to operate my world. And when those lines get crossed, and I'm like, okay, let me back up, because we didn't cross some boundaries here, and however I don't know how to get it back, and I don't got time to try to explain to you what just happened, because I feel like all of us, especially as creators, especially on this call, we're multifaceted, and I can't explain to you why I just can't do it right now. If you love me, you should get me, but if you don't, I'm gonna say you don't love me. It's just that maybe it's our time to go. It's release. It's release. So I'm still navigating those waters and boundaries.
I wanted to add something. Another way you could also say it is this relationship no longer serves me the way that it used to. Another way you could say is I don't have the capacity for this anymore. That's another thing I say to clients all the time. You can say, tell this person I no longer have the capacity to do or operate in the way that I used to. And that's a very simple and easy way to say to someone, I can't do that no more.
Yeah. And yeah, go ahead. See.
I wanted to add concerning boundaries. I think the main thing that we are worried about is looking bad or making somebody else feel bad. But one thing that I just want to encourage everybody is you are still a good person, even with boundaries. This, I think in our hearts of hearts, we struggle with boundaries because we don't want to be seen as the mean girl. And it's not about being a mean girl. It's really about prioritizing yourself because everybody else going to do what they want to do. So you have to put yourself at the top of the list and still know that you are still a good person, even with boundaries. And your boundaries absolutely do reflect your values. But if being a good person is a value of yours, you have to be good to you first. And then everything else can follow.
That's good, Z.
And I know as a resource, I've heard people recommend the book. I've not read it, but I've heard a lot of recommendations on the book, Set Boundaries, Find Peace. And I'll drop it in the comments. But I've heard a lot of, I went to an empowerment event, my friend's empowerment event, and they recommended it there as well. So if you're looking for a book as a resource, I've heard that's a really good book, but it's called Set Boundaries, Find Peace by Nidra.
I think it's Nidra. She has a.
I'm just gonna put it in the comments because I can't.
Tawab.
Yeah.
She also has a new book called Drama Free, and specifically on how to create boundaries with family.
Nidra Glover Tawab.
Okay.
Glover.
Okay.
Y'all better type.
And so I want to pivot to a space talking about healing, and because one of the things that I realized is when you are not healed, we talked about this in my community a good bit, but y'all, I saw it today at work and I just said, wow, like as soon as I got through with the meeting, like I called my husband. So, you know, often we think that we're hiding, like not being healed in certain areas. And I know that there are certain areas where many of us still need to heal, and that's okay. But if you don't leave this live with anything else, like hear my heart, like it shows up, y'all, like in a lot of different spaces. It even shows up at work. And my point is, like, even when you think you're masking it, so this is an example, true story. I'm on a call and the person that I'm working with makes a comment and she goes, she's taking on too much work is what's happening. And she's on a call with our managers and she literally says, I'm doing this because I just want her to like me. And she starts laughing. But it's one of those like nervous laughs, so then nobody else laugh with her, so it got real awkward. That's bad because like you really just said that, like you just want somebody to like you like that. You just want somebody to like you. And so, and then we also talk about this in the community as well about like Facebook statuses and stuff like that. Like a lot of times, you know, we say stuff and we're acting like we're saying it like jokingly on Facebook, but we really just saying it, you know, we act like we're saying it for attention. Well, we really saying it because we need to heal. Like I'm saying all this because like there are resources available. You know, you don't have to, you can show up better than that, you know, and the problem is sometimes we don't have friends to pull our coattails and say, hey, that ain't no good look. Cause like somebody should have told her today, like if I was her manager, I would have been like, that ain't no good look. You know what I'm saying? So think about that. Like, how are you showing up? You know, and sometimes I've heard people say like we're masking a lot of things. I know y'all know the term that they're using, the personality, what is it? I've heard TD Jakes talk about it a lot. Like you kind of like have different personalities. It's like a newer term. can't think of it. I'll think of it by the end because it's gonna drive me crazy. But we're basically masking. We're masking who we really are by what is it like?
Imposter syndrome. I said
What is
imposter
it?
syndrome.
Imposter syndrome. Yes, that's a
Okay.
lot of what I'm seeing too. And so yeah, just we need to heal. Imposter syndrome. Somebody else put in the comments, but yeah, imposter
Yeah, I
syndrome.
read it
So
off what they said.
yeah,
I think when it comes to healing, it is a very personal process that has a lot to do with, like we talked about earlier, awareness. I will say from my personal therapy experience, when I went to therapy, I went because I was having anxiety about planning a wedding, and I was like, I don't know if me and my husband gonna make it when we get married. I just don't think it's gonna happen. And lo and behold, I didn't know that I was going for that. It ended up being in there 4.5 years later. And so it is a very personal process, and you may not know what you're going for. You may uncover so many other things. And like you said earlier, Jasmine, within Manifest, with that young lady saying, I just want her to do this because I want her to like me. I think one of the biggest things is Black women, and I could be wrong because I don't also like to make a lot of general statements when it comes to us as Black women, because we are multifaceted and and beautiful. But a lot of us often feel like we have to prove ourselves in a lot of spaces, in a lot of ways, because it's socially and also in some ways unsubconsciously ingrained in us that we have to just be better and the best. And how that also is just not sustainable. And so when it comes to finding what's healing, most of the time you are going to be walking on a personal journey trying to figure out for yourself what you really want that you may have never been told that you have permission to do and permission to have, especially when it comes to your relationship with God. Because for me personally, my struggle with my relationship with God was being authentically 100% vulnerable with Him. And the authentic 100% vulnerable self with God is not the cookie cutter like way of coming to Him like, oh Lord, you're so holy. It's God, this is not right. And I'm using very soft language now. And so you have to be authentic, because God, in order to consider God as a safe space to even receive healing, most of the time when people ask for healing in the Bible from Jesus, they came to Him. But they came to Him and oftentimes were in a very, very rough, they were down to the point to where even I heard this guy talking about this today when he was talking about the lame man in Acts, when he was laying in front of the gate called Beautiful, and I think it was Peter and another apostle were coming to pray. He had been laying there for years, so much so he was used to asking for money, people passing him by constantly. He had gotten used to this condition. And when you are so used to a condition, you can sometimes think that the problem you have is not really the problem. And they said to him, we don't have money, but we have this. And so I say that to say that oftentimes we think we come into God with the thing of, God, if you could just fix this thing. And God's like, no, I need you to be 100% real with me. This is what the issues are. And it's not, and sometimes that's a process. Sometimes it takes years to figure out. Sometimes it takes being tested. Sometimes it takes you being in situations to even allow things to come up, because we think it's supposed to be cute, and it's not cute. It's really hard to walk through a healing process. And if I'm just going to be frank, it's really hard to walk through ultimately being sanctified. Like, we're saved, but we have to walk through a process of sanctification. And so in order to sometimes go through God's boot camp, you are going to be ugly, and you're going to experience hard emotions, and you're going to experience sorrow, and you're going to experience, I don't want to do this. And you're going to experience using colorful language at times. You're going to experience not wanting to do any of it and be like, God, why do I even want to follow you? How hurtful and painful it can be. But sometimes it takes you being able to be authentically vulnerable and being aware that that is what it takes to get to the other side, to say I'm hurt, to get to that. Yeah, because healing hurts at first. So yes, it does. It hurts horribly. But you're met with, especially in therapy spaces, and what I like to tell clients is, I'm your biggest cheerleader. I'm a God's girl, but this is a space where you don't have to be judged. You don't have to be shamed. You don't have to be or feel like you are being cast out to the side, because that's not. You're going to be met with love and complete, authentic, unconditional love in this space. And I think that's what we need, because we're often met with keep it together, hold it together, and you just don't have it together at times, and that's okay.
But I think that feeds into that narrative of just being an imposter. And I think people are tired. And I think that's where we need to lean into this part about cast your cares. Cause like, it's like, we gotta be performative at work, and we gotta, be wife and mom and all this stuff at home. And it's like, you got all this internal stuff that you got going on. And I'm like, we just need to find that space where we can just heal and really, I feel like laying it at his feet. That's why I named this as Jesus and therapy, because I feel like laying it at his feet, that's one part of it. And then there's another part where talking with somebody, like, I feel like that's an option too,
Absolutely. I think one of the most interesting things about COVID, and not to negate, what all of us experienced during COVID, where it was we lost loved ones, jobs, homes, there was a lot of loss in COVID, right? But outside of that, what I took from COVID is that God set aside some time for us to really sit with ourselves. And I think a lot of us were exposed to like the parts of us that we've been ignoring because we felt the need to perform at work or perform on a daily basis as far as the in and outs of what that day may bring and all that stuff like that. But for me, and I can honestly speak from my experience, is that I had to ask myself those hard questions that I mentioned before. Like, why do you think the way you do? Why do you feel that way? Why is it, in my mind growing up, as far as, seeing others be a part of the church or developing a relationship with God. So I thought, it seemed like, everything had to be about perfection. But when it got down to the nitty gritty behind closed doors, it's very, very much not perfection, because God's going to keep asking you in several different ways, because our prayer in front of people or in front of the church or the altar call is like, God, I just want you to use me for your glory, not really taking a full account of what that really truly means. And that means, okay, God's going to present me with opportunities for me to be used for his glory. So if I'm praying for peace, he's going to bring hell. He's trying to strengthen that muscle for me to be able to use and execute, for me to start operating in peace or start operating in the manner of how he wants me to be used. And so when he opened up that door for like, okay, this is what our relationship looks like. It's not going to look like Susan's over there. It's not going to look like Derek's over there. This is me and you talking. A lot of people are going to say, this is how you talk to God. Yes, this is my relationship with him.
Absolutely.
When I'm apart with him, and as I just talked about this, as far as like, sometimes we get so caught up in like it's okay for me to yoke up with the therapist or groups that, of like minds, but sometimes it's things are set for consecration for me to be able to be by myself with him, so I can understand what his voice sounds like, outside of what my voice sounds like and what my therapist's voice sounds like and what the group of women sounds like. So when I understand what his voice sounds like, then now me can have a straight up conversation. God, I don't like this. This ain't what I signed up for. When I gave you my yes, I didn't know I had to go through this. I didn't know how to lose this person. I didn't know I had to go through all kinds of hell just to get to here. But then when you start being able to have that comfortability to have that conversation with him, then you start seeing things shift around you, and that boldness for us. I don't tiptoe when I go to his altar. I'm like, okay, God, you saw me. I could come boldly to your throne and I could ask you for whatever it is I need. And it don't have to be anything tangible. God, I really want to see more of what you have for me. Show me how good it can get. Show me if I am experiencing anxiety and depression, tell me how I'm able to use what I experience to help the other person. How can I bridge that gap? So when we get to that level of understanding what our relationship is with God, it seems like things just start to open up for you. You just can't make sense of it at all. And that's where I find a lot of my friends in this space, or just women that I follow, or people that I admire from afar, that God is really showing us and allowing us to be able to be disciples for him, public disciples for him, so we can actually show other people that it's not as cookie cutter as other people may have seen. It really does look like this. It may be sometimes where we're completely covered, like you mentioned, like when you go through those spaces and times where I may be unrecognizable to myself. I don't even see the person that I looked like yesterday. I may have a dark cloud over me, or God has, placed me in this position where, nobody needs to know my name. Nobody needs to know what's going on with me, because I'm in a space where God is saturating me with the right ingredients in order for me to really sprout and really able to take hold of what he's really trying to download in me, so that I can share with others. So when I feel like for me, for Z, for Jazz, for you, for us to be able to be in this space on this call for women to be authentically ourselves, because he's also showing us, yes, there's places where we could be transparent, and there's places where we could be vulnerable. There's a place where we could be both, and there could be places where we have to separate the two. However, I truly believe that in this day and time, us being more vocal about what it looks like, the ugly, the brute, the just downright just nasty, and then letting other people see, like, this is what it looks like on the other side. It's going to make other people feel like they don't have to perform no more. They don't have to put on their Sunday best just to get a word, just to be comforted by his word, or be enveloped in his presence. So yeah.
That was so good. That was so good. Z, you got anything to add? And then we're going to transition to one more topic. You got it.
Touche, baby. Touche.
I want to add one more thing.
Okay.
And I'm bringing this topic up. If you are someone that is really struggling with this, please reach out. There is a 1-800 number for the National Suicide Hotline. Please Google it if that's something you struggle with. But in the Bible, in 1 Kings 19, verse 4 through 13, it talks about Elijah wanted to commit suicide. He literally went to God and said, asked him to let him die. And so where we think that these are stories that are just cute and we see God come through for people, I like to bring this story up for clients who struggle a lot with burnout and or struggle a lot with family who really have just drove them to a place where they feel very isolated and alone, because that is what happened to Elijah. He literally was being sought to be killed and essentially went away. And so in 1 Kings, I'll just read a couple of verses. 19, 4 through 13 says, Then Elijah walked for a whole day into the desert. He sat under a bush and asked to die. Elijah prayed. This was a prayer. I have had enough, Lord. Let me die. I am no better than my ancestors. Then Elijah lay down under the tree and slept, and suddenly an angel came to him and touched him. The angel said, Get up and eat. And so basically what I explain to people is that the reprieve for Elijah from this place of, so when you're at a place where you want to die, you have experienced despair and sorrow and hurt and anger and frustration and weariness for a long time. For a long, long time. The reprieve that God provided was for him to eat and to rest. He literally fed him, then told him to go back and lay down, literally. And he basically said, if you don't, the journey will be too hard for you. And so whereas we think that we can't be authentically vulnerable with God, Elijah, a prophet of God, went to him and said, please let me die. I've had enough. What do you want from me at this point? And that is what, tell me your name, sis, so I can say your name, because I can't see your name over the thing. What's your name?
Me?
Yes.
April.
What April said earlier, being authentically vulnerable. And so you have to sometimes get to that point where you can go to God and say, I don't know what to do. You have to give me something. Otherwise, I'm going to lose it. And it's in that place, the ugly place, that you are met by God. An angel was sent to him literally to be fed. And so I think I just like to provide that as a thing of, this isn't the Bible, this is the word. And so if a prophet of God who is being used by God as an instrument, as a tool to do a mighty thing, can want to die, please believe that we as people of God and children of God can have those same emotions, even being in relationship with the Lord as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's
There is
good.
help. There is help and there is hope. Yeah. And something God gave me as I was thinking about tonight is that a lot of us have been carrying something that belongs to God. And this is like going to transition into, and I believe April touched on it, but disappointment. And as entrepreneurs, I know that this is something that we can all relate to in different seasons, but I don't want to just speak to it as an entrepreneur, but because everyone in our community is not an entrepreneur, but I just know this is a heavy topic because, for example, like in my hometown a few weeks ago, there was a tornado, and God had me to share this message with a lot of people that I'm friends with and family members. Just like, I didn't do this, like I didn't do this, but they were still disappointed. And so that my point is that disappointment is just a very real thing. And so we all experience it from one season to another, but we can't let it sit there and dwell there. And so in those seasons of disappointment, matter of fact, let me have y'all put that in the comments. If you feel like you've been carrying something that belongs to God, just put it in the comments and we're going to release that. Like, I release that to God. You don't have to put what it is, but I'm releasing that to God. Just make that declaration, because a lot of us, like, we have to move forward. Like I said, if it's not therapy, safe space, something, we have to move forward. We have to move forward. But any tips, any resources, anything you all can share around disappointment. Like I said, we all experience it from one season to the next. Like I said, especially as entrepreneurs, but I definitely want to make sure we touched on on disappointment.
I want to go first. So I just I'm still kind of in a season of disappointment, but I'm not saturated in disappointment. I'm now at the stage of more so acceptance. And so disappointment is challenging, especially when you first experience it, because disappointment can also show up as hurt. It can show up as sadness. It can show up as grief. It can show up in many different ways. It can show up as anger. And it's very, very hard because what we want to do is rationalize why we're experiencing that disappointment, when really there may not be any rationale to kind of suffice for feeling that way. And that's okay. But I think that what helped me was having good godly counsel around me, meaning that I can be vulnerable. I can pick up the phone and call Jasmine and cry. I can pick up the phone and call Rosalind and say, hey, this is how I'm feeling. And what you can say back to me is, I don't care how many times you got to talk about it. If you need to get it out, you need to get it out. That's a different kind of safe space where you don't feel like you're holding something in, right? Not only can that be a safe space, but absolutely going to God and saying, God, I'm pissed off. I'm
Yes.
pissed. I'm mad.
Yes.
I don't understand, what this is, why this is. I'm upset. And you may have all the tools in the world. And I'm talking about me, myself, and I. I had all the tools in the world, but it wasn't until I released all of that disappointing energy and got into a state of acceptance. Something that Jasmine said to me, God be speaking through your good friends now. He gonna speak through the right ones, right? And it was something that Jasmine said to me about acceptance, and it helped me to shift my thought pattern. It was a level of comfort that I had talking with Rosalind that helped me to shift, from disappointment to acceptance. So it's so important, again, to just create that community, but you have to be who you want to see, right? I have to be a safe space for Jasmine to call me when she don't feel like going live. I got to be a safe space for Rosalind to call me when she worried about her babies. If I want that, right? If I want somebody to treat me like that, then I have to be that too. but that just comes with, you know, growth and maturity. But disappointment will happen. Disappointment will be there. And a lot of times talking to God ain't always, you know, the most comforting thing, if I could be real. Because he ain't sitting on my bed talking to me back. You ain't answering me fast enough, you know, my Lord. I need you to come on right now. I need something right now. I'm suffering right now. The nights are getting longer and longer. I'm crying tear after tear. My pillow, I can't flip my pillow no more because I'm hurt right now. So it's so important that you understand God can speak through people.
That's so
You gotta
true.
put yourself in a position where you have the right people around you. And then stop thinking you getting on folks' nerves. I know that's what I'd be like, I ain't gonna call because I done said this. I already talked about it, 30 times. That 31st time may be your breakthrough.
Period.
It might be your breakthrough. And you may not feel like I could talk to my man. He may not be the one. That might not be his purpose in this season. That don't make him a bad person. You just gotta find where you can go. Your safe space. But disappointment will happen. It will hurt. And there's no timeline on when you shift from disappointment to acceptance to move on. But it does make it a hell of a lot easier when you have the right people around you to help you go through that, even when talking to God is not the most comforting thing.
And you said so many good things, but I'm going to plug this. Y'all, it's something that happens when you open up your mouth and release things. Words change worlds. And when my therapist said that to me years ago, like, it has really helped me. And like just getting it out sometimes, like she said, like just talking to somebody, like you will be amazed. And because something I wrote down as I was praying about this was, as long as I'm hiding the disappointment in my heart, you'll never heal it. And some of us, we won't even talk to God about it. It's almost like he don't know it's there. You mad at him because you think he did it, when really he ain't do it. But we just got to be honest. Like if you're mad at God, just talk to him. Tell him that he can handle it. He God. Like he a big G. He can handle it. I promise he can. And that was my story. I was actually mad at God. I was disappointed, and it turned into anger to where I stopped praying. And I really thought, like, I didn't even realize how it had festered, but it festered to where you won't open your mouth. And that's where the enemy, he loved that. Like, he loved that, because then he'll put all kind of stuff in your head. You'll be surprised what happens when you won't open up your mouth.
No.
Scripture, people, what? They declared this, they declared that, they declared. Open up your mouth, like just talk to somebody and release it out of your, like, release that, because you carrying all that stuff and your heart heavy, your head hurting. As a matter of fact, I remember me just needing to set some boundaries one year and just get some stuff out. I remember literally, y'all, I went to the doctor, I think it was 2019, for every major test on my body. There wasn't nothing wrong with me. Them folks sent me right back home. I've had tests on my head. My head was hurting real bad. My back, just all kind of major tests, heart. Nothing was wrong. Tests was come back clear. At the end of the year, I heard Holy Spirit so clearly. There were some things and some people that I needed to have conversations with. And I'm going to be honest with y'all, they were family members. So it was hard. It was hard because y'all know Black families, we don't like to have them kind of conversations. So communicate. Like she said, just get some people that are good counsel, like good people you can talk to. It will make all the difference.
And I think that's a self-care as well. Allowing your body to hear your own voice. And so that's the way I can affirm myself. So like you said, the enemy will find ways to kind of keep you trapped because he understands the power that lies along your tongue. And when I realized that, because sometimes it felt like a muzzle was over my mouth. It felt like something was trying to cover me or trying to shut me up from talking, or to at least speak the word. And when I realized that, okay, when I started to I may just say, just thank you, Lord, until the words expanded more into sentences, and I'm full along having a conversation with either God or either myself, just saying, hey, you can do better. You got this. Don't be so hard on yourself. Yes, you're beautiful. Yes, you're fearfully, wonderfully made. Like just saying those things out loud, you will start to see, like you said, it shapes your reality. It will shape whatever it is that you got going before you. And then you'll also understand that things is not as bad as it may seem. And then when Z mentioned about, like, as far as finding your safe space, there are times where I feel like I try my best to be led by the Holy Spirit when I need to open my mouth to the public, because there are people who are praying for you with an A, and there are people who are praying against you with an E. So I'm very cautious about, like, I can't exude all of my vulnerability on the Blue app, because then I'm allowing people to embark or to infiltrate in whatever God is trying to shift in the atmosphere, because now they either praying for me or they're praying against me, as far as whatever needs to take place in that moment, or as far as however I'm feeling. I'm allowing too many people to have a say in what's going on with me. So it's like, it's okay sometimes in certain arenas to voice how you feel. However, just be mindful, like, when you expose yourself to a whole world of people that you don't know, then it's like, then you get confused and being conflicted by which voice do I hear the most? Do I listen to my own? Do I listen to God? Do I listen to this chick that I don't know, that I ain't never heard of? And then look what they're saying, and the shares and the screenshots. It gets all confusing. So if you're not right within, and if you don't have a firm foundation as far as who you are, then you have to be cautious about opening that door for everybody to speak on your life. However, when you do get yourself with a good therapist, and put yourself in a room where you can be your wholeheartedly your authentic self, that safe space, it can do a world of difference, because they will let you understand that the more you worry, the more you're worshiping the problem. The more you keep your mind fixated on this anxiety or this depression or whatever the case may be, you're worshiping the problem. And then God is also asking you, is like, he already know how you feel. He just needs you to hear how you feel, so we can go ahead and release it and start the root work as far as how to get on the other side. And so that root work requires you being able to say how it is, how you feel, straight up, no matter how it sounds. Because if I'm telling my friend that this is how I'm talking to God, they're like, well, ain't you disrespecting God? No, God already know how I feel. He just want me to be bold enough to say it, because he already know it. He already knew this was going to happen. So God, hey, I ain't understanding this. What's going on, bro? Like, talk to me. Like, I don't like how this feels. I don't like what's going on. So I think like I said, when you put yourself in that mindset of understanding what true healing looks like, you will also start to say that all things are working together for my good. Like, instead of why it's happening to me, what's happening for me. If there's gonna be good on the other end of this, what is it? Help me understand how I'm supposed to walk this thing out. I'm not trying to rush the process, but help me walk this thing out. If the hurt, the disappointment, the confusion, the outrage, the grief, like, help me to walk this journey out, God, because I know you said if I keep my mind on you, then this is going to work for my good as well.
And the last thing I'll say, because I know we're at time, but a lot of us, like I said, this is a community where I've been just pouring into them and empowering them. I'm like, God don't want us broke. So we talk about money over here, but what's money and all this stuff and the business and the six figures and all this stuff, but your mind is not well. A lot of times, like, I see people posting about it, we want it and it sounds good in theory, but it's like, but you going home, you crying yourself to sleep every night. And I think those are the times where we just need to be real with ourselves and really, like I said, take the mask off, stop being the imposter, and just call Rosalind so y'all can just get these sessions and, like, go on get this healing. Go on get this healing. Because I promise you, I tell my husband, I tell anybody that listen, like, my therapist really changed my life. Like, I mean, because, like, I heard somebody say earlier, like, I started going for one thing and and I know it was a God moment. It just opens the door for so many other things, because, that healing is big, because otherwise, too, you'll sit with those things and they'll fester and then they spill over into other areas of your life. So heal, please. You don't take anything else.
Desmond, before we close out, I want to speak to the people who, for them, when they experience disappointment, they basically kind of go into a place of I don't care. Like, oh, it don't really bother me. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
That is apathy. And when you are experiencing apathy or being apathetic towards stuff, you're very much so at a place of disinterest. You push it away. It can be very resentful. You can feel resentful. And whenever you're experiencing apathy or resentment, there is a high level of disappointment somewhere. And when you are experiencing disappointment, there was an expectation that was not met, whether spoken or unspoken. And when you have expectations, we all have expectations of some sort based on our experience, based on our trauma, based on the way we perceive things. Because Jasmine could have an expectation of the way dressing is supposed to be made on Thanksgiving. I can have another expectation of dressing being made on Thanksgiving. And when Z make it and it does not taste the way that we expected, we are immediately disappointed. Everybody had a bad macaroni, or maybe you had bad macaroni in the bunch when somebody is assigned macaroni and they don't make it right. So we all have expectations. And so when we have expectations of God to do something and they are not met, we have to really be aware of that can easily creep into resentment and pride and apathy. And that's the first place you don't want to be. Not to say that you may not get there, because I've been there plenty of times when I've experienced disappointment with God or any situation from someone. But it can be a place that can also drive a lot of anger, a lot of pessimism, where you're just negative all the time. You don't see any hope in anything. And that is a place where at that point you do have to talk to someone, because otherwise you won't see hope. You'll see everything from the lens of sadness and grief and disappointment and denial and blaming that it's everybody else's fault and you have no part in it. And that's just not a place that God wishes us to be. Because here's the thing, He is God, He is sovereign, but He is also loving in His nature. And He can do whatever He wants to do, but He chooses to love us and accept us. And when you really do get to a point where you can start to work through that, you'll begin to see, oh, I had an expectation of something, said or unsaid. And that it can be a thing that you have to then process through and talk through and share with your community. Talk about it 15,000 times, because you're just trying to piece together the thoughts and the feelings. And you do have to go through it multiple times sometimes, because you're just trying to understand. And so it can be confusing. It can be emotions, and hard emotions can be uncomfortable. I don't want you all to think that experiencing healing is easy. It's not. It's uncomfortable, and it looks, sometimes you just don't look like yourself. But at the same time, on the other side of that, you get to find out the healthiness of what it actually is supposed to look like. And it's a better feeling on the other side.
That's good. All right. Well, thank y'all so much for joining. I hope y'all will be back to our community. I really, really appreciate y'all's time. Thank y'all so much. Y'all were amazing. Have a good night. Thank y'all.
Thanks for having us, girl. Good night.
Thank you. So if you joined late, tonight's topic was around mental health. And so I hope that you will take these nuggets. I hope that you will apply them. And the reason we are talking about this is because it's such an important topic. And not only is it an important topic, but we need to heal so that we can show up and be the people, the women that God is calling us to be. That's something we've been talking about in our community, Women Created for More. If you're not plugged in, if you're not a member, it's absolutely free. It's a Facebook group called Women Created for More. And we're just a community. We just love on you. We hold you accountable. We host virtual events. We have an in-person event coming up. It's called the Freedom Trailblazer Experience. Is coming up on June 2nd and 3rd in Memphis, Tennessee. If you are in the area, please get your ticket. And yeah, we just love Jesus over here, and we just believe in executing and doing the things that He's called us to do. So thank you for joining. We'll have some more events coming up soon. We have one coming up on the 10th, so you'll see something coming up about that soon. So thank y'all for joining. I hope y'all have an amazing night.